All right, so today we're diving deep into data privacy and, government overreach. We'll even be talking about Elon Musk a little bit today, too. We've got some court filings and expert analysis that really raise some big questions about who can access your personal data and just how much power they have.
It's like you look at what seems like a small bureaucratic decision,
Yeah.
and you realize it could have huge implications for individual rights.
Yeah, it really makes me think about my own data and, what kind of access the government actually has. This isn't just about one tech CEO, though,
Yeah,
right?
not at all. It's about access to massive databases that are full of sensitive information,
Yeah.
things like social security numbers. And this lawsuit that was brought by these labor unions, they're trying to protect that data,
Yeah.
especially what's housed in the Treasury Department.
This lawsuit, what's the story there?
Okay, so 2 individuals with ties to Elon Musk were brought into the Treasury Department. It's called a detail, which basically means they were temporarily assigned. And given Musk's, all of his different businesses,
Yeah.
it raises some questions.
Yeah, I can see why. Like, let's say one of Musk's companies is being audited by the IRS, which is part of the Treasury Department. Having someone with connections to Musk on the inside, that seems like it could be a big conflict of interest.
Exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing that has people worried.
And from what I read, Judge Kolar-Kotelly seems to be aware of that, too. She's looking to block those 2 individuals from sharing any Treasury records with Musk or really anyone outside the department.
Yeah, she's definitely taking this seriously. She even demanded a filing from the Department of Justice by tonight, just to make sure that they're complying with her restrictions.
Wait.
Judge Kolar-Kotelly, she's known for being really meticulous. I remember this one case a few years ago. She shut down an entire government agency. They were trying to overstep their boundaries. It involved...
Oh, wait, you said she was appointed by President Obama, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so she's been on the bench for a while now, and she has a history of not putting up with any nonsense. But what are the experts saying about this specific situation with the Treasury Department? I mean, is there a genuine risk here, or is this all hype?
So some experts are pretty worried. They're questioning the qualifications of those 2 individuals, and they're saying they might not have the right expertise to handle sensitive data securely. Some people are even using the word cronies, which makes it sound like these appointments were more about favors than about competence.
Cronies. That's a pretty loaded term. But couldn't you argue that having experience in the private sector could be a good thing in government? Maybe these individuals, they bring a fresh perspective.
That's possible. But the concern is that their loyalty might be more towards their old employer than to the public good. We have to remember we're talking about access to incredibly sensitive data here. Any chance of misuse or a data breach could have some serious consequences.
Okay, so what do you think the government's response is going to be? Are they going to back down or double down?
I think they'll probably try to hedge. They might acknowledge the judge's concerns, but I think they're still going to push the boundaries of their authority and hope to get away with as much as they can. It's a pattern we've seen with government agencies before.
Wait, is it really a pattern, or are we just connecting some random events? Because that sounds a lot like what we saw with the Trump administration, where executive orders and directives were constantly being challenged in court. Are you saying this is a systemic problem that goes beyond just one administration?
I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah.
Government agencies have a tendency to test the limits of their power, no matter who's in charge. And that's where the courts have to step in. They have this really important role of holding these agencies accountable and making sure that they're working within the boundaries of the law.
So the courts are like the referees, making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Exactly. And if government agencies or their lawyers are found to be acting in bad faith or trying to mislead the court, there could be consequences. We could see contempt charges or even repercussions for their legal licenses.
So it's not just slap on the wrist. These judges, they have real power, and they're not afraid to use it. It's actually pretty reassuring, but it also makes me wonder if judges are getting tired of this. It seems like it's a constant fight just to keep the government in check. I imagine that could get frustrating even for the most patient judge.
I think you're right. It's possible that judges are getting less tolerant of these tactics and that they might start issuing more assertive orders to try and prevent these kinds of things from happening again, almost like they're trying to anticipate the loopholes before the government lawyers even think of them.
That's interesting. It's like a chess match where one side is always trying to think 3 moves ahead.
Exactly. And that leads us to another important point. This case, it might seem like it's just about a few people and Elon Musk, but it actually shows a much bigger trend.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more.
So this case, it highlights this pattern of government agencies pushing the limits of their authority. It's not about a specific administration or political party. It's a problem that we need to be aware of.
So this isn't just about a few people maybe getting their hands on some data. This is about something much bigger.
Exactly. It's about who has power, how they use it, and what protections are in place to protect individual rights in this digital world.
That makes me think about transparency. How can we as citizens hold our government accountable if we don't know what's going on? It feels like we're kept in the dark a lot of the time.
That's a really important point. And it shows just how important journalists and organizations are. We need these watchdogs to keep an eye on things and expose wrongdoing.
Speaking of watchdogs, you started Democracy Docket, right? The outlet that focuses on voting rights and elections.
Yes, that's right. It's a resource for anyone who wants to stay informed about these legal battles that are happening that affect our democracy.
It sounds like it's something everyone should be reading, especially now with all the challenges facing voting rights and election integrity.
I agree. It's more important now than ever to be informed and be a part of these discussions. We need to understand what's at stake and how these legal battles could shape the future.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. It makes you realize that even small bureaucratic decisions can have a huge impact on our lives and on our democracy. It's easy to just go about your day and not realize what's happening behind the scenes.
That's true. And that's why cases like this are so important. They make us face these questions about power and privacy and the role of the courts.
So where do we go from here? We've talked about potential conflicts of interest, the role of the courts, the need for transparency, and how important it is for citizens to be engaged. What happens next in this story?
Well, I think this case brings up some really important questions that we need to answer as a society. Questions about the balance of power, the limits of government, and the importance of protecting individual rights in a world that's becoming increasingly digital.
It's like we're at a turning point. We have to decide what kind of future we want. Do we want a future where our privacy is respected and where the government's power is kept in check? Or do we let those things slip away?
I think you're exactly right. We need to have a conversation about these things as a country, a real conversation about the trade-offs between security and privacy, about how technology affects our lives, and about the kind of society we want to live in.
This case, it started out focusing on these few individuals and their access to data, but it's really opened up a whole can of worms.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. We need to be having these conversations. We can't ignore them. We need to be informed. We need to speak up. And we need to hold our leaders accountable. It's almost like they're trying to think ahead, like they're anticipating those loopholes before the government lawyers even come up with them.
Yeah, like a chess match where they're always thinking 3 steps ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another really important aspect of this case, because this isn't just about, a few individuals and their connection to Elon Musk. It's a much bigger issue.
Okay, fill me in.
This case, it points to this broader pattern of government agencies testing the limits. It's not just, one administration or one political party or anything like that. This is a systemic issue that we need to be aware of.
So it's not just about a couple of people getting their hands on some data. It's about the principles at play here.
Exactly. It's about who have the power and how they use it and what kind of safeguards are in place to protect individual rights in the digital age.
That makes me think about transparency. Like, how can we as citizens actually hold our government accountable if we don't even know what's happening behind the scenes?
That's a really crucial point, and it highlights why it's so important to have organizations and journalists who can shine a light on these issues. We need those watchdogs to dig deep and expose any wrongdoing.
And speaking of watchdogs, you founded Democracy Docket, right? The outlet that focuses on voting rights and election stuff?
That's right. I think it's an important resource for anyone who wants to stay informed about all these legal battles that are happening that affect our democratic processes.
Sounds like it's essential reading, especially now when voting rights and election integrity are facing so many challenges.
Absolutely. It's so important to understand these issues and be a part of these discussions. We need to know what's at stake and how these legal battles could affect the future.
I have to say, this whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. It really shows you that these seemingly small bureaucratic decisions can have a huge impact on our lives and on our democracy as a whole. It's easy to go about your day-to-day and not even realize what's going on.
That's very true. And that's exactly why these cases are so important. They force us to face these questions about power and privacy and the role of the courts.
So where do we go from here? I mean, we've talked about potential conflicts of interest, the role of the courts, how important transparency is, and the need for citizens to be involved. What's next in this story?
I think this case, it highlights some really fundamental questions that we need to be grappling with as a society. Questions about, the balance of power, the limits of government authority, and how to protect individual rights. In this digital world, that's constantly changing.
Yeah, it's like we're at this crossroads. We have to choose what kind of future we want. One where our privacy is respected and the government's power is limited, or one where those things are slowly eroded away.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. This is a national conversation we need to have about the trade-offs between security and privacy, about the role of technology in our lives, and about what kind of society we want to build.
This case, it started out with a focus on a few individuals and data, but it's opened up a whole Pandora's box.
It has, and I think that's a good thing. These are conversations we need to have. We can't shy away from them. We have to be engaged, informed, and willing to hold our leaders accountable.
This feels like we're only scratching the surface. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to data privacy and the power of the government and technology.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. This case with Elon Musk and the Treasury Department. It's just one small piece of a much larger problem.
Yeah, but it's a piece that's got me thinking. Especially about, government surveillance. Like, if unelected officials can just access all this personal data, where does it end? It feels like a slippery slope.
It is a real concern. And the courts need to be really careful about this. If we don't set clear limits and actually enforce them, there's a huge potential for abuse.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the laws we have now are even good enough to handle these problems. The digital age has brought so many new issues.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure it all out.
You're right. Our laws and our ideas about what's right and wrong, they have to change with technology. We need to have these open discussions about the balance between security and privacy.
So this isn't just something for lawmakers and judges to deal with, is it? This is something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. We need to be informed, we need to speak up, and we need to hold our leaders accountable. Democracy isn't something you just watch. It requires all of us to participate.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's given me a whole new way of thinking about data privacy and how power works in this digital age.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope this has given you some things to think about.
It has. And to everyone listening out there, I encourage you to do your own research, stay informed, and don't be afraid to speak up for what you believe in. The future of our democracy really does depend on it.
I agree. The stakes are high, but I'm still optimistic. I think if we work together, we can face these challenges and create a future where technology is used to help people and not the other way around.
That's a great way to end our deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. Your insights have been really valuable.
It was my pleasure.